right, this is episode 4 of VR Dev Talk. As always, I'm your host, Ken Lemieux, Fisto, and with me is my co-host, Neil, Big Squirmy. How you doing tonight,
I'm
Squirmy?
I'm good. I'm good. You know,
Yeah,
can't complain. How about you?
can't complain. I'm good. I'm good. Have to say, I'm tempering my disappointment.
I
I
know.
was
I know.
as we talked about last episode, Squirmy and I were honored to be included in the Presence SDK hackathon at Meta Corporation. They were going to fly us out and pay for a hotel, and we're going to have 3 days to work on some interesting prototypes. Squirmy, when did you get the email? Because you told me.
It was Friday or Saturday morning at midnight, like maybe
Oh,
12:30. That's whenever it came through. Yeah, I was
yeah.
I was up, burning the midnight oil, working on my game, and I seen it come through, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, yeah. I just got a message from you, and it's all it was they canceled it,
Yeah.
and with no other information. So I had to wait hours to figure out what did they cancel? Cancel what? And I didn't have the email yet for whatever reason.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so, geez.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but understanding. I mean, today in the news, the big news all over the news today is, of course, the Twitter meltdown and Facebook Meta. It was lost what 76% of their stock value within the last year.
Yeah, and they announced the layoffs that's going to be coming. I don't think they announced how much yet, or but they definitely said that, told people to buckle up and to get ready, and
Yeah,
who knows if that's going to hit any of the VR sector or not, divisions, Reality Labs, but I would assume at some aspect of it would get cut, but we'll see.
well, know these are kind of big moves where I don't think anybody's spared, right? Everything's on the table for these things.
Yeah, I
uh
mean, I mean, their stock was back up this morning because
wow, that's tiny bump, tiny
but
confidence bump.
yeah, a little bit. Well, it always goes like that for every tech company though. Whenever they announce layoffs,
Right.
Wall Street loves
It's
the
like,
layoffs.
well, they're like, oh, they're finally getting their house in order, they'll be fine. But the question is, will they be fine? And if they're not fine, if Zuckerberg drives this thing into the ground, what's that mean for VR? Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Where do you go? Where's your next headset come from if it's not Facebook Meta?
yeah, exactly. And
Right?
unless they sell it off to another company, but at that point, I mean, wants to buy it?
Yeah. Seriously, let's say tomorrow, all the Meta headsets stop working. It's like, all right, they're gone. Who are the players? What headset do you go buy?
I mean, I guess you still have the PC VR sets,
I
the
guess.
like the Steam ones. I guess maybe Pico stuff, but you can't get those in the United States really unless you go through hoops, But
I think you're stuck. There's no standalone headset that would replace it in the US,
no, there's
right?
nothing, and I don't think that they would just shut them down overnight. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think he still has the vision. I mean, he said from the beginning, right, that it was gonna be a long haul, a long ride, a long
Uh,
journey.
yeah,
They
well,
expect
talking
to.
about a long haul is totally different than going through a long haul,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
I think the biggest thing that hurt him probably is some of the things that came out, like the early Horizon images, with the sad looking Mark
it
Zuckerberg
just
avatar, and it just
um,
it just kind of gave it a bad image, and then they released their earnings, and then everybody's like, oh my god, you spent that much to put this out.
it's it's incredible to me that it is and it isn't. In some ways, I'm shocked they could put that out and spend so much money doing it. And on the other hand, it's almost exactly what you expect from a company that doesn't know games. Meta is an ad company. They sell ads on Facebook, right? That's they have other things, but that's their cash cow, right?
Right.
And once that imploded, once Apple started cracking down with the advertiser ID, which took the sort of the affluent section of mobile phones off. Boom. Facebook's a ghost town. The demographic for Facebook is our age, right? Like kids don't use Facebook. Like 20-year-olds don't use Facebook, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't use it. I use it to. I guess every once in a while, I just look around on there. I find the thing I use it for the most probably is the Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes I'll look around on there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Because it
No,
used to be like Craigslist, but
Yeah.
I don't use Craigslist anymore. I find Facebook Marketplace to be where it's at. I mean, I've sold stuff on there. I've bought stuff on there. So
Is that right? Is that right? Oh,
Yeah.
it's always too it's always too frightening for me. Just
Yeah.
like the problem is in Maine, if you get a good deal on something, you got to travel for it, and it's like, whoa, do you really want to go all that far?
Well-
anytime I go someplace, my cell phone signal gets a little sketchy.
Mhm.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, a lot of this stuff on Facebook Marketplace, the people offer shipping, right? And they have the same kind of like buyer protection that eBay and all does. So like if something happens and you don't get your
Yeah, but but that's whatever revenue they make from that pales in comparison. They're an
Right.
ad company.
Yeah,
And
it's-
Zuckerberg knew gravy trading's over, right? You can't keep doing the same thing. You're not going to have your ad revenue. Everybody's going through it. Google is sacked by it. They have to deal with the iPhones that they can't track like they used to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a huge revenue change, right?
Yeah, and Microsoft is they're taking hits. All the tech sector, the whole tech sector is just way down right now. I mean, it's gonna bounce back, but I think what it boils down to is that there was massive hiring through the whole COVID period, and
Right.
people working from home, and we need people to do this, we need people to do that, and they obviously had new positions open for this, and people working on making remote capabilities better and stuff like that, and now that everybody's gone back to the offices, kind of, I guess that stuff's not really needed as much anymore. So that's probably the people that's gonna get laid off the first.
I think there'll be some sizing there, but in the long run, Microsoft's going to be fine.
Oh yeah,
right?
They're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
Microsoft and
there's-
Amazon, they have their their bread and butter is the servers, the infrastructure. So
Well, but Microsoft is still huge in business software. Like any company running a business is Outlook and Word and all that, and that's not going to change. There's no competitor. They don't have to worry about being dethroned by, Google. They've moved Office 360 to the cloud. Businesses are tied into Microsoft. With Meta, hey, if they're not there, people go, remember that place? It's like, boom, they're gone. Oops, they're gone.
Yeah,
Right.
like they're heading towards the ways of MySpace,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that could happen so quickly.
Well, and
But-
I think that's part of the reason, and I think they know that, and I think that's part of the reason why they rebranded to Meta and split Facebook off into its own entity, and they're trying to do different things with the Reality Labs and other stuff that they got going, But
to me, it's an effort with no clear vision, and it wants to be everything. The Quest Pro, it's a nice release, but it's a misstep. I'm not quite sure. I feel like they're trying to do so many things at once that they're not doing anything well. To me, they saw the success of the Go. The Go is a very cheap device, got great reviews for what the Go was, right? And we wouldn't have had a Quest 1 if we didn't have a Go,
yeah,
right? And Go nailed it for whatever that was, for that $300 price point. It was usable. That was a first low-end usable device.
and that one was just 3 degrees of freedom, right?
Right, 3DOF. And I'd tried some of the other headsets by some of the, I think Lenovo had a headset, HP had a headset. The HP headset was, horribly engineered, and it was hard plastic. It was, you couldn't wear that. The tracking was abysmal. I mean, it's just not usable. So they have these great devices. They nailed it with Go. They nailed it with Quest 1. Quest 2 is a great refinement. Somehow they took their eye off the ball and they went up to a Quest Pro.
I don't.
It's like,
I don't see the Pro as a misstep. You know what I think it is? I think the Pro is a test, right? I think they're
they don't have
using.
time for a test like this.
They don't anymore, but at the
No.
time, I think that's what their plan was, to use the Pro as a market test to see, release something at a higher price point to see what the consumers are willing to pay. And and I've seen, I see every day, like on Reddit, on Facebook, on the Quest groups. I see every day. I see more and more people showing off their Pros that they got. So I don't think that they're gonna sell as bad as people think. I think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna do. They're not gonna obviously do as well as the Quest 2 because of the price point, but I do think they're gonna sell a large number of the Pros.
I disagree with that compared to a Quest 3. The effort they put into this, it is. You could argue, and maybe the argument is whatever is going to be in the Quest 3 needed to come out in the Pro, right? They figured out how to manufacture it. They couldn't get it down to that price. You and I had that conversation about pancake lenses. You said pancake lenses were cheaper. I don't know if that's the case. So we can assume the Quest 3 might have pancake. Is that right?
The Quest 3 is gonna have pancake from what the leaks have said. So so the pancake lenses, from what I understand, they're a little bit more to make than the Fresnel lenses, but the VR headsets have to have like custom Fresnel lenses, so it actually ends up making the pancake lenses a little cheaper.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
From what I've read, and that could be wrong. I could be off a little bit, but in the end, I would guess that they're probably about the same cost. But I guess it boils down to other things too. Is not only that, but like maybe it affects costs of other things in the headset, or it does allow the headsets to be thinner. That's one thing, and lighter. So that's one thing that's really.
The thing though is you have to look at somebody like Nintendo, who their designs are pretty much genius, and they almost never rely on pure power, right, in their systems.
Yeah.
But what they do is they make a great platform in the sense that you can build upon it, and it's a consistent platform, right?
Yeah.
So and they give it a life, right? And I can understand iterating through headsets, Quest 1, 2, 3, whatever, but to have I think they should have kept. I think they have a software problem more than they have a hardware problem, because their big problem now is people buy the headsets and they put them in the closet.
Yeah.
They're not making the money on the store like they thought. There's a certain amount of players who buy the headset and use it on Steam. Terribly popular on Steam, right?
Yeah.
They go play their Steam library.
And I think that's partly due to their store policy, their curation policy. Because if you look on, and that's partly why they released App Lab, right? But the problem with App Lab is no discoverability really, and a lot of new users, it takes them a while to find out about App Lab, and then so they go through the store, and they play what they can play, and then they get bored. It's like, oh, there's nothing else to play. They don't have anything else, and then they go to Steam and let's see if they have a PC to play with.
Yeah, I think it, and also it's impossible to search App Lab. There are no great ways. I know SideQuest does what they do, and there are other App Lab DB and stuff, which is just purchased by SideQuest. But it's not an easy thing to go, especially in the headset. Like, hey, I want to play something. What do I have new? I can go to a store page and see what's on the main store and browse around the few titles. And I can only get to, I'm not sure how many titles are actually on the main store. Okay, let's just say 500, right?
I think it's 400 to 500. I think that's accurate.
Oh, okay, right. But if I want to browse what's on the store, it's a bit difficult. And I
Mhm.
always end up seeing 20 apps,
Yeah.
right? Very rarely do I see something new unless it's featured as the new release.
Right, right.
It's hard to discover stuff.
It is. It's
And
really hard. And
it's even worse with App Lab.
yeah.
You have to know exactly, and I get what they're doing there. I get why they do it, and they want to control the platform so that they own it and it doesn't get away from them, right? That's why it's not a free for all. They
Right.
couldn't
Yeah.
make it like Steam, just put whatever you want up, right?
Yeah. And
So
well, I think that's what I think that's why Apple hasn't released a headset yet, right? They're kind of doing the same thing they did at the start of the iPhone, right? I think they're just watching and waiting and seeing what people like, seeing what people are doing, seeing what, and they're just collecting all the data. And then when the time's right, they just go release something, and it's gonna be like, bam. That's my
Well,
feeling.
I don't know if it's exactly the case that they're watching because I don't think they're aping anybody else. I think they have their one clear vision, and that vision took this long to build. I think it took longer to build than they thought it would,
Well, then,
right?
and they're not, and Apple, they're not going to release anything that has any kind of bugs or big bugs or anything or half or any kind of half measured uh, production or software. They want something that no user is going to get confused. They're going to be able to use it, and it's going to work, and it's going to do what they expect it to do, right?
My take is they don't do a device unless they can bring something to it. It's like, oh, other people made watches, right? For other people made digital watches for what, 20, 30 years, right? Apple's the one who turned it, who grabbed half the luxury watch market when
Yeah,
they were ready,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
It's like we're going to do this right. So the headset better be something. To me, it better be something that redefines what we think of as a headset. Just like before you had an iPhone, you had a phone with a
yeah,
little keyboard maybe or whatever, and that's what a phone was. You could have this one or that one, but they were all pretty much the same,
yeah.
right? They had internet, kind of, right?
Yeah, the Blackberries, you could check your
Right,
email and stuff,
right, right, right,
yeah,
right.
and then
So
iPhone just took it to another level, right?
well, no, when you saw an iPhone, first time I ever saw one of those, I was, what is that? Give me one of those. That's a screen. I don't want to play with a stupid phone, right? And hopefully the headset's going to be that way where it's like, oh, we don't need controllers. And you know what? This one thimble controller that fits on the tip of my finger, which I would have never thought of, doesn't suck. It's the most genius thing I've ever seen. I'm hoping for that, but I think it's stupid, and I think they're probably going to miss the ball because they're not going to pay attention to games,
Yeah. Well,
right?
I don't know. I mean, they I don't know. I think they'll pay attention to games. I mean, if you look at their AR kit stuff, I mean, that's their AR kit stuff is probably some of the best AR stuff that's out there right now. I would
No,
argue.
no, no, no. Apple's AR stuff is the best in the planet. It's the
Yeah.
best that's ever been. They have it deployed on more devices on this planet. They have more data. They've been working on the AR kit for, dear God, what, 5, 6 years now?
Yeah.
Somebody correct me. I'm sure I'm wrong there, but
And it
their
works. It
AR
just
is,
works.
oh, it's solid. I mean, you can't fault their AR work. Oof. So of anybody, all these other people are experimenting with AR, and Apple's over here going, yeah, we've got this.
Yeah.
They can test it on 1 million phones tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so hopefully their headset will reflect that.
Yeah.
I expect it to be. I'm hoping it's something like I didn't even know you could do that,
Time
right?
time will tell, and then
Yeah.
and it's like I think what did they quoted Mark Zuckerberg as saying something like the Quest 3 would cost somewhere between $500 and $600 or something like that, right? So I mean, basically that's the Pro without the controllers, right? I mean, because the controllers are what $300 a piece if you bought them.
Well,
So
no, not 300 each.
you
Is
sure?
that right?
I think so. Yeah.
No, I don't have any prices. That's, dear God, that's a lot.
I
But
think that's a big part of what the price was for that because of the controllers. And I
is that
mean the
right?
controllers are really nice. That's the thing I like most about the Pro is the controllers. I never want to use controllers with a ring on them again.
Oh God, why would you? But I actually, the controllers are probably, to me, the biggest upgrade. I don't know, the quality of the screen is pretty darn nice, you
Yeah,
know.
the screen and the lenses are really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
299 for a new controller. So you're looking
For
at six,
one, for
yeah,
one new
for one
controller.
controller. So you're looking at 600 bucks of that cost of the Pro is just for the controller.
Oh, that's interesting. Because, well, we'll have to see what they do. I'd heard lower numbers for the price on the Quest 3, somewhere between 3 and 400, and I hadn't heard anything about controllers.
I
That
mean,
it wasn't coming with controllers.
at this point, this is what, like the fourth. This will be like the fourth or the fifth generation headset. I mean, the Quest 3. So
Mhm.
I would say they should almost release a SKU that's at a cheaper cost, but without controllers, and to make it backwards compatible, where you can use your Pro controllers with it or your Quest 2 controllers.
Ooh, ooh, oh, that's a great idea because Quest 3, oh, I can use the controllers I have, whatever they happen to be, and I can swap controller. That's a good idea.
And then you get the
Um,
and then you get the new headset with the new
yep,
features at a cheaper
yep,
price point.
yep. That would be good, but my whole point was I think they have a software problem and not a hardware problem. Their
What soft
hardware's good, right? And it's getting better, right? We see that in the Pro. It's getting better.
Yeah.
And the economics of it, they'll figure it out. So you always keep this baseline headset. Maybe you don't subsidize it as heavily as you did before because you have this problem that it's so good as a PC headset. People are using it as a PC headset. It makes you wonder if at some point they're going, geez, why do we ever put in, Live Link or oh, I'm sorry, that's not the name. Why'd we ever put in AirLink or whatever, right?
Right, yeah. And then,
So
the AirLink don't even work with the Pro yet, right? It's like they're supposed to do an update or something like that at the end of the month or something. Is that right?
I had it working.
The you
I've
took
had
on the
AirLink,
oh the I'm thinking of the what's it called, the new little router thing that they came out with?
the AirBridge. I had
The
my
AirBridge, yeah.
AirBridge work. Well, here's the thing. I had it working without AirBridge. I had it working with AirBridge, and then it stopped working with AirBridge, and I just
Okay.
disconnected AirBridge. It's like,
Yeah, because
go
they
away.
they said they said that yeah, the AirBridge wasn't supported yet with the Pro, and there would be a software
Oh,
update later this month. So
all right. Well, bleeding edge, right?
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
But the thing is, there still isn't a compelling reason for people to use the headset regularly. They're still going on closet shelves. Aside from people like us, we're developers, right? How much do you use your headset when you're not developing, when you're not writing something?
No, almost never.
Yeah, right, right. I do play games, and I play games with the sort of the eye of a game developer, right? It's like, oh, that's low res. Oh, I didn't know you could get away with that, but that looks good. And
Well, but I have started using it the last couple days, and well, we both had it, what, like a week now, right?
yeah, right, right.
Uh, so I started using mine probably the last day or two in like I guess call it the business mode or whatever, with workrooms and having the PC screens,
Oh,
and it's actually been pretty nice. I've been enjoying that.
well, I haven't even tried that. Haven't I? I played some games. I played with some face tracking stuff. I did fire up Iron Man, the new release.
Oh,
It's an Oculus release with Sony,
hmm,
and it's an interesting game. And what's nice about it, it definitely has the feel of a AAA game, right?
yeah, yeah.
Most of the stuff we play is by indies or whatever, and so the menu screen is, amateurish, and the music is clip art or whatever, and just even the cut scenes where you interact with you're in Tony Stark's mansion
Hmm.
and having a conversation with Potts, and for some reason they limit your locomotion when they're doing a cutscene. You have to stand in this one position, but when you're not doing a cutscene, you get to walk around, and it's absolutely some of the finest low poly work I've ever seen.
What
It's
well,
just
what happens if you just like try to walk away, like physically walk away from the spot that you're
uh,
standing in?
it won't let you. The controller doesn't.
It just
It puts a little reminder on your screen like, "Hey, this is a fixed while somebody's speaking. You stand right here and watch,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yeah.
which is a little unnecessary, but for whatever reason. But it's nice to see, number one, there's a story to it, right? And it helps so much to have the why of it. Why am I doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just boil the game down to, moving your cursor on a screen and it's white and your cursor is green and there's no compelling reason why you would do this, right? But this sets up the story and it allows you to be Iron Man, which
Right.
is, it does a pretty good job. And the flight physics of Iron Man are super arcadey.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you really have much control. And they made some interesting choices there, but it made me want to try.
They tried to make it for, I guess, for new users, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you'd say this title is probably geared towards?
Oh, absolutely. And it would be not just new users to VR, because it really is such on a handrail. But it's an old game, so the fact that it
Right.
moves you around like that.
It was on. Wasn't it on the original PSVR? Is that right?
Yeah, it was. It was. So it's quite an old game at this point. So the fact that you do get to have this sort of flight and full locomotion is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was the early days of how things were done, but it's still polished and it has some nice missions and it walks you through the game a bit. Oh, we've done this. Now, here, let's try another mission that's a little more complicated. And the controls are, to me, very arcadey, I feel like. And I'd love to give it a go and do a prototype in Hurricane Hexabody,
Yeah.
because it doesn't, the jets in his hands don't work like you would expect.
Yeah,
Right.
I made like an Iron Man type prototype before.
Yeah.
It actually is actually
And
pretty fun. It was like Iron Man kind of with portals. It was kind of like it was actually pretty fun. I still
was
play.
it VR?
Yeah.
Oh,
I still play around with it every once in a while. So basically, you had like thrusters on your hands, but then on your wrists you had blasters, and then
hmm
you could also like attach things to it to make them like different types of weapons. It was pretty cool.
yeah.
But I
But
never.
that's that's
I
not up somewhere.
I still got it on the back burner. I'm
Yeah.
trying to finish this one game first,
All right. So where are you on the game? What are you looking at?
Well, I actually got word back today on my App Lab submission. So I got one issue I got to fix just with the privacy policy, and then I can resubmit it.
Oh,
And
you
then
didn't submit with a privacy
it
policy, or they didn't like your privacy
it
policy?
has a privacy policy, but it didn't specify which I don't know why I even need that, but it said I didn't specify how users can request their information that's collected. But earlier in the privacy policy, it states that no data is collected or stored. So I don't know why I need that to begin with,
Yeah.
but I'll go ahead and add it if that's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, crazy. So, all right. What's your release date?
I'm still shooting for right before Christmas.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Well, you gonna make it?
I think so. It's gonna be tight.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm.
Well, I got a whole week this week since we're not going to the hackathon, so I'm gonna try
I
to
know.
bang out a bunch of work on it.
Oh, that's right. You're off work. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually, I'm gonna work. I may take Thursday, Friday off and work on my game. I'm at the point where I have Emerald AI logic working, and I started to build out a first level in Pro Builder, and I started just gray boxing it, and I was kind of happy with it. It's not that great, but it's good enough, and it's like, yeah, this is all right. So I'm starting to get a little more confidence in the environment that
Right.
I made. It was interesting to get in it. It was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool, and these angles are cool. And I did experiment. Oh, what's your lighting like? Are you using real time lighting? Do you have baked lighting?
I'm using Bake, but I do have some real time.
Yeah. I love Unity backlighting, especially for low poly
Oh, it
stuff.
looks it looks so good. It looks so good.
Yeah. So I'm starting to do these levels, and I'm starting to make prefab pieces for different corridors, and I made some corridors, and I made sort of a main hallway,
Yeah.
and I have a Space Marine rigged up in VRIK, and I have a similar Space Marine rigged up in Emerald AI. And I have a couple of snappers, critters. They're included with Emerald AI, so I can't have them in the game.
Yeah.
And they will run up and chomp at you. So you can damage them. You can shoot them and kill them, and they can damage you. I don't have any interaction there yet. Like, they can't kill you. And I'm working on the Marine. He's lifts his weapon, fires, and I'm working on the damage for that, so he can shoot you from across the room or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's see after that. Oh, I did. The next thing is probably I'm going to make sure you can shoot and he can shoot. I did. I worked on the waist. I have ammo in the chest. I have
Okay. Yeah.
socket in the chest. The idea is whatever gun if you have two guns and you put one away, and whatever gun you're holding will have the right ammo to
Oh, yeah.
defeat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If something, that's what I'm thinking. We'll see how that works.
Yeah.
But for reloading, I do like the reloading. There's always a question: how detailed do you get? Do you have guns in your game? Do you have handguns? No.
No, because you're in the cockpit the whole time. So
Right.
what I have,
Right.
I have a lot of other stuff. So like, I have like so basically when you die, right?
Mm.
You can, sure, if you want to do mess with all the interactive stuff while you're dog fighting or fighting with other people, you can, but uh, it might not be a good idea. But basically when you die, uh, when you get killed, you don't just die, right? You go into this state of like it's kind of like a state of suspension, right? So other players can't see you, but you're still in the cockpit, and your ship is kind of destroyed or broken or whatever, and you have to respawn back into the game. You have to do things to fix the ship from within the cockpit. So maybe there's some there's an electrical panel sometime, and it's different every time you die. Like, it's just random. I just have it set up random. So like maybe you got to open the electrical panel and connect some broken wires, or maybe there's a keypad. You might have to punch in the right combination on the keypad, and so like
Mhm.
I just implemented a user manual, like a physical user manual, and it has like all the different codes that I'm gonna have in the keypad. So like you whatever error code is showing on the screen, you'll have to flip through the manual to find that code, and it's not the same code every time. So it's like a
Yeah.
random code, so you can't just memorize the code.
Oh, I can't wait to play this. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I
Hopefully,
bet. I bet.
hopefully I get it out on time, but we'll see.
Yeah. Do
I,
you
I
do you
did
find you?
I did just redo my whole input system. I was using the VRIF framework system, but I don't know, it was just kind of, at certain times it was just kind of janky, and I was having issues with it, and like I don't know, it was just
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on with it. So I just completely just axed it, and then went with the built-in, the Unity
Yeah.
XR
Really?
toolkit, and
Wow.
yeah, so I just went with that, and then just implemented all the stuff that I needed, that I was using
Oh,
there from scratch, and it was just, and then now everything just works fine. It's no issues like I was having before, and I
right.
almost hate, that's that's the only thing sometimes about using plugins or other stuff like that, is if you run into any issues, it's like, do I sit here and try to fix the issues with this system, or do I just go ahead and build my own system that I know how it works, and I know exactly what I need to do to fix it, and if there is a problem, I know where to go to fix it, and I don't have to go in somebody
Right.
else's
Right.
Discord and ask questions like, "Hey, where did you do this? Or how do I do this? Need to do this?"
I think there are assets that are mature enough, and I'm a big asset guy. I love assets, and before I will use something in production, I need to be sure that it's what I really want. And I think in my Slenderman days, I used a lot of assets, plugins for whatever, and I got gun shy. I was like, wait a minute. At some point, I was like, do I need this? Am I going to put this in my game? Am I going to trust this? Am I going to write it myself? And usually, what I needed for functionality was some small subset of whatever the plugin did, right? Sometimes
Right.
these plugins are, but I do think there are mature plugins out there, and that I trust. And I'm a big Hurricane Hexabody guy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even want to deal. I don't even want to deal with the Unity XR stuff. I don't want to see it. And I just think having that layer over the top gives me such a great base. Like I was able to rig up a character in VRIK, and the character I used is a very low poly sort of space marine. So your fingers are large and square.
Hmm.
And when you make a fist, they're all kind of and at first I was like, well, that looks kind of bad. And then I was like, what do you mean? That's awesome. I have square fingers. This is awesome. And I did have to redo some poses. The poses are stored on the objects you pick up for certain kind of objects, especially guns. You store hand poses, and when you change your avatar, you have to redo those hand poses.
Yeah.
And it's very finagly work inside Unity. There's an editor for it, but it's great to have editors in Unity, but sometimes it's hard to write complicated interactions in a good editor. But
Yeah.
the more I use it, the more I get it.
I'm debating on which direction I want to go. Like how, so you just mentioned that the poses, the hand poses are stored on the actual
Yeah,
objects that you pick up, right?
right.
So you have that way to do it, and then you also have the other way that's common is that you have on each object you have maybe say like a grip location, right? A grip
Mhm.
transform, and then so on the grab you parent your hand model to that location and then set the animation based on what it's set to in the grip, right? So I'm kind of debating between those two, and I think
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hurricane allows both
I think the
easily. You can decide.
easier yeah I think the easier way is to just have the models on the objects themselves, and I think that's the way I'm just gonna go, and just on the
Really,
when you grip it, you disable the visual of your hand model and enable the one that's on the whatever grip,
really.
and
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. Hurricane has a really nice physics poser. So there are certain objects where you don't need to record the poses for everything. You do for guns because you want them to be in where anything you really need some precision to where the hand goes. And guns in Hurricane, they have the package for guns all set up, and it has all the clip and the cocking the. I'm not much of a gun guy, but
yeah.
um, all that interaction. There's a wizard to help you make different kind of guns, so you can make some really interesting guns. And I think the reloading mechanism in a game seems to be really, really important to players.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I've seen games with options. Do you want like a quick reload option, or do you want to have to really fumble for it? And some games like geez, I forget what
I like the realistic ones, right? So like
yeah.
whenever you if you empty the whole magazine and the chamber's empty and you reload, then you have to put the new magazine in and then recock it. But like
Yes.
if you stop with one bullet left in the chamber and then you switch out the magazine, then you don't have to recock it. You can just keep shooting. That's the kind of style I like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I like. That's what I'm going for here. I'm gonna try to simplify it. I don't want to make it too hard to reload, but and I'm not going to use realistic weapons. I'm going to use sci-fi weapons.
Hmm.
So they're a little more, they're
En-
interesting.
Energy
They're
blasters and things like that.
right, right. Because I think I can do a good job. I did some tests with a blaster, and the muzzle flash coming from it and decorating it with the particles and stuff is really interesting in VR
Oh yeah, it's
because
nice. That's how all mine are. They're all like because it's a spaceship, right? So you got it's
right,
all
right,
other than the missiles. The missiles are like missiles, and then that. But I have like
right.
tracking missiles, and I have an EMP missile that will
Hmm.
disable a ship in its range, and stuff like that. So it's
Oh,
but
that's
yeah,
very cool.
I like the sci-fi though. It's good.
I'm a big sci-fi guy. I mean, one thing about VR is, the experiences on available in the store. It's almost like somebody said, "Okay, we're gonna make. What's the worst thing that could ever happen to you?" And we're gonna make a VR experience about that. Like, I don't quite get that. It's like, what's like the best thing that could ever happen to you? That let's make a VR experience about that. You know, and I guess it's sort of my thing is I'm trying to go back to a little old school shooter stuff, but I'm realizing that I have more options with the interactions,
Hmm.
so that while you do have to contend with these horrible enemies, you're trying to do something, and you have
Right.
more ability, like to put a machine together. Generally it's the mission is, hey, power's out, go restore the generator, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how interesting is restoring the generator, and collecting parts and figuring out how they go together is actually kind of fun in VR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make it a bit of a puzzle, and not too hard, but so that's kind of where I'm going. And I did try a little test level with baked lighting, and I used lighting probes, and I just think that looks wonderful. It looks
Oh
great on the
yeah.
game.
Do you use
So,
do you use reflection also or no? I'm not using
uh,
reflection in mine.
no, I don't. I don't. I may in some hero spots in some big locations, but I'm trying to keep the game uh, like super low poly. Let's pay attention to it. I know that you can do quite a bit on the Quest 2, so but I want to pay attention to where all my poly budget is going. And, I was thinking some pretty simple geometry, simple but interesting. And that's what I was working on my first level. It's like, yeah, that's simple, but the shape is there,
Yeah.
and I plan to build the level out as a gray box and then do various passes to it,
Hmm.
to improve it. And I really like lighting. I think lighting is super important, and it helps with, obviously the bake lighting helps with low poly.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of colored lighting. One of the Slenderman games I did, of course, one of the problems with Slenderman games is it's always dark, right? Well,
Okay.
there's a technique they use in film. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called day for night, where they film it
Hmm.
during the day and just put a filter on it.
Yep.
And you can do that, like the horror games I've done. I make sure you can see the screen. There's nothing worse than a horror. You can't really see anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but I think there are techniques to light a screen or light a video game scene where you can see what's going on, but you
Yeah.
get the atmosphere that is really dark.
I just started adding some for certain things, and it works out really nice with the bait lighting as well. As I wasn't using much emission um,
Oh,
with standard shaders, but I made a custom shader that's a little cheaper that still uses emission, and it's been adding some nice little touches here and
oh,
there.
emission's great. The only drawback on the Quest is you can't use full screen bloom over it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because that would be, although for bloom, if you look at some of the Doom games or whatever, I'm not sure which Doom or whatever, but maybe two or three, at some point they were doing bloom on lights with geometry, just
yeah.
transparent geometry.
I have
And
I have an asset that I use for light rays, and
mhm,
it's really performant, and I use it. I use it a lot, and man, it really brings a scene together,
yeah,
and it just
yeah,
adds those extra little touches that just like look like really good.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of I'm interested in designing this first level, and I'm trying to come up with what, number one, why are we doing this? The theme behind, and what is this place? Where are we? And what's sort of the progression of it? Where do I start? Where do I end? And what I'm trying to come up with a beginning, middle, end for the level, you know, and I'm looking forward to doing some more design.
The
That's always a
other
tough one.
the other thing that I've been starting to get further along with is adding sounds and tactile feedback, with the haptics.
Mhm.
And man, that I don't know if it's just because I've been playing around in my little world there so long without it, but adding that little stuff, just sounds for every little interaction, and making the controllers rumble every time.
Yeah,
It
makes it more
really
real.
it really adds a lot. And
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into, because the pro controllers have 3 haptic engines,
All right.
but I haven't looked into it yet as far as like making a certain one rumble at a certain time. And I want to probably get into that this week and try to see if I can figure out what we got to do to make that
Yeah.
happen, because
Yeah.
I think I really think that would add a lot to it too, if you can have, like a different one for like a trigger pull and a different one for a
Right.
grab,
Yep.
and I think it'll add some more to
Yeah.
it.
I think I mentioned maybe last week that I had put impact material physics material system into my game, so you can throw a plastic bottle and it bounces and it sounds like plastic,
Oh yeah.
and it does the interactions. And that is such a big deal because for all my demos, all the little prototypes I do, I never do that kind of polished stuff because I don't get that far.
Hmm.
You throw a cube or whatever, it doesn't make any noise. But when it does and it's accurate or close to accurate or close enough,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, that was really glass. I
Yeah.
really did
Yeah.
drop, but yeah, that stuff's a big deal. But hey,
We
Squirmy,
we had
I
some questions from some listeners. I don't know if you want to go through that now.
yeah, absolutely. That's just what I was going to say.
Okay,
All right.
yes. The first one was how to get in VR development and the different areas of the industry. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I'm the only thing I can talk about is sort of being a bedroom developer, so to speak. I'm not in a bedroom, but you know what I mean. I'm like a homegrown developer. I couldn't tell you how to get into the game industry for VR development because there isn't much, and thousands of Meta employees are going to be unemployed tomorrow, right? So,
Well, but
uh,
they're not necessarily working on VR though. I guess so, but I guess I guess it depends on where your. I guess it depends. The question depends on where your level is at, right? So, like, if you're a beginner,
yeah.
then
Well, no, the only thing I can speak to is being this independent guy who's, made a few games and made a few
hmm
bucks off them and stuff, which isn't a bad place to be,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, it's a hell of a hobby. It keeps me busy. The biggest thing is you have to want to make something. You
you
may
have
have
to.
to go.
Yeah, you got to pull the trigger and get started. Download Unity,
Yeah.
download
Yeah.
Unreal, get started, make
Well,
something.
my suggestion for a beginner would be Unity 3D.
hmm
Get a machine, get some VR capable machine, and you need a headset. And of course, right now I'd recommend, one of the low. And if you could find a 128, uh,
Well,
you know,
if you have no experience, you don't even need a headset. You can just you can get started just with Unity, just with the editor, make some stuff, make some mechanics, just a pancake game, and then once you get familiar, because
oh
if
yeah,
you don't already have that familiarity, if you're not already familiar with it,
yeah,
then VR just adds a whole another level of complexity. And
yeah,
if you're not ready for it, you're just gonna get frustrated and
yeah,
quit.
yeah. Well, it all starts with Unity. Download Unity, install it on something, get on YouTube, start learning about what you want to do. The pancake game is great suggestion. Whatever it is, that game. And a lot of times people have or they're inspired by games,
Yeah.
right? So
And
I want to make my
what I always suggest is don't try to make a whole game right off the bat, right?
right.
Start with little small projects, start with a
Hmm.
mechanics, say like, okay, I'm playing Valorant. Oh, I like that mechanic where Jet throws that smoke
Yep,
ball.
yep, yep,
Like, okay, make that smoke ball mechanic in Unity or Unreal, wherever you're using. Just make a
yep,
little small
yep,
mechanic like that, and then say, okay,
yeah.
what's another mechanic I can make, and just keep doing that, and then eventually you'll get, you'll get there.
Oh yeah. I mean, the first stuff you'll do will suck, and then you keep getting better, and you do little bits and pieces. When you play games, you say, "Oh, I wonder how they did that." And the other thing is, for years, I would when I didn't know what to do, I would sit down with Unity and look at a feature I hadn't seen before.
Hmm.
And I'd go to the manual page. Oh, I don't know what a nav mesh agent is. Well, I'm going to try a little test, or I mean, it's a blast to play with baked lighting, right? Lighting's
Yeah.
phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Even that. So you start learning these little features and you figure out what you can do, what you're capable of. You just do little, start with the tiniest project you can and then make the next one bigger. That's right. And
That's
just
it.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
And, YouTube and the internet, I mean, there's a
Don't come
lot of,
out of the gate and try to build a RTS multiplayer.
yeah. Okay. That's what we tell you. But what we do is we go build multiplayer things.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Even though we should know better, right?
The I think the first game I ever made was in 2014, and it was a Flappy Bird clone.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I've been making games for years and years. I worked at a company called Deep River Publishing back in the '90s. We did CD-ROM games.
Hmm.
And then that blew up. I ended up in sort of in the corporate world, right? But I always made games on the side, and Unity's made that easy
Yeah,
since 2012. So I think it's a great place to start. You have to want to love it, and then once you do get into VR, you get a headset and you start building your own worlds. The thing that came up when I was doing my level, and I see this with my other game, Flying Squirrel Chase, is these are worlds I built, and it is something to go into a world you've built and say this is cool, right?
yeah, yeah,
This is a space that didn't exist, you know,
yeah.
and
And the other thing is, well, I lost my train of thought there, but
I'm sorry, sorry,
yeah. But
no, but
so the next question is, I'm sorry, did you have something else to add to that?
no, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
The next question is how filmmaking can transform into VR.
I mean, when I was playing the Tony Stark game, they were doing a pretty standard video game cutscenes, and they're better in VR than they are in a flat screen.
Yeah, yeah,
So I personally think, and I saw this on Reddit. Somebody posted, VR is lonely, and it is. It is lonely, unless you're in a multiplayer game. Any of the games you'll play, Red Matter 1 and 2 are both devoid of people. You do have some voices, radio voices, essentially, right? Narrators, but everybody's dead or everybody's gone in most VR games. It's just you, right? Into the Radius is that way. I mean, well, there are enemies, but it's a pretty lonely world. And I think the biggest thing is missing is characters,
right, yeah.
right?
And
And
I think it's gonna get to the point to where, because I've read some articles where they are using some VR stuff, like in certain, because they're using like stuff like Unreal and stuff for a lot of
Mhm,
movie sets now, like The
right,
Mandalorian and all. So like they're doing things where the real time rendering, they're able to go in VR and walk around the set and like actually see, like if they got like a CG rock right here, they can actually put the headset on and see what it looks like, what it'll look like.
wow.
Yeah, so it's getting there. I mean, other than that, I don't really know where else it can go. I guess somebody will come up with some good stuff for it for film
Well,
stuff.
actually,
And
the way I think the end game is going to be fully procedural VR experiences
yeah,
tailored to your interests. So
yeah,
instead of going on Netflix and flipping through all these things that sort of meet my interests or my interest level tonight, like I'm desperate enough that I'm going to watch a baking show, right? You'll be able to put your headset on and say, where would you like to go? And it'll be a text to 3D object kind of thing. Oh, I want to be in a garden in Sicily, with pink elephants that fly. All right, click, click, click. There you go. You know,
yeah,
I who do you want to be there? Well, I want Abraham Lincoln and Spock. Right. Okay, here you go. And you can carry on full conversations with those. We've already seen like the in-world AI
yeah.
product is
And with eye tracking features, they can take that to the next level. Like you can, the AI characters can tell when you're looking at them, and then they can start talking to you based on your gaze. If you're looking
Well,
at
even more than that, you're doing full face tracking and eye tracking, so you
yeah,
get emotion. So they know if you have negative response to what they said or not,
yeah,
and so there's some interaction. Like what we need is Fallout 3 in VR. It'd be a great port, and I know there's already a port of it, but we need whatever that equivalent is in VR. So
hmm
you can go in there, like Fallout 3. The thing with Fallout 3 is it's a story, and the game I was thinking about, Zen, was very much like a Fallout 3 mission. So it's not a full open world where you can go do anything, but here in this particular mission, it's going to play out based on how characters respond to you. Right, you have the choices. A lot of choices break down to positive, neutral, negative. Right, and by checking those responses, you can change how characters behave towards you.
right.
And I think that's one way to have a story. It's an awful lot of work, but it's great when it works.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, and that's a game like Fallout 3. The story matters. It's like the why of all this. Yes, I love stomping around the wasteland, crafting things, and wearing big armor and killing scorpions. But the characters in the mission all give you a reason that this is important,
right,
right?
yeah,
Which is, I suppose, these games do give you a sense of control, right?
yep,
That's the feeling. But
yeah,
so, and I personally think movies aren't going to be around too much longer. I mean, we'll see it in our lifetime. Next 20 years, it's going to change.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
it'll definitely
I'm
change.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
All right. Question 3. Where are we chronologically in terms of VR evolution? So, like infancy state, at the peak, past the peak. What'd you think?
Oh, it's infancy. I
Yeah,
mean,
I agree. I
there's no,
think I think we're
yeah,
we're still headed towards the peak.
yeah. I
I think once the hardware gets to a state to where it can't really evolve anymore, then I think at that point we'll be either at the peak or pretty close to the peak.
Mm. I don't know. I think at some point we're going to surpass these with brain computer interfaces. So you're going to have a short time where headsets are king. Maybe the next 20, 25 years, you're going to see the headsets get incredibly small, a pair of glasses, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think the headsets can only get so small, right, and still provide that same experience until they come up with like implants and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But that's gonna be a long ways away. But I
I
think until I think we maybe have like maybe 2 or 3 more generations of headsets before we hit the peak. So I'd say within the next 5 years, we probably at the peak, right, or almost at the peak. Because really, the peak aren't is the hardware is only like part of the equation, right? You still got to have all the money and the developers coming in
right.
to create the experiences for the hardware. So until those things happen together, then at that point, I think we can say we're at the peak.
Well, you have to define what you think that peak will be. And to me, it would be if VR headsets had the same adoption rate as TV sets in your home, right? Although that might be a hard comparison because there's a lot of homes that
I
don't
would
have TV sets.
I would compare it more to like game consoles, so like Switch,
Hmm.
Xbox, PS4, PS5, stuff like that, right?
Oh, I think it's more like, I was hoping it was going to be more like the cell phone, but
Yeah.
I think it's
I
going to be more like the console.
eventually I think, but I don't think it's a linear curve either, right? I think
No, no,
it's going to it's going to kind of go up and down a few times, and then
right.
um eventually it might hit that, but and
Yeah.
until there's a lot of stuff that they'd have to still solve like some of the VR sickness and stuff like that for people. Some people will never try it just because of that, or they'll try it once and then never try it
Well,
again.
no, but that's the vocabulary of VR. There are things you don't do in movies because you make people sick, right?
Right? Yeah.
And it's like you can't swing the camera around and spin it around and let an audience watch that. So guess what? You don't do it. And
Yeah.
same thing with VR. They'll be like, look, it's a great idea, but if you move somebody's head, they're going to get sick.
Yeah.
Cut it out.
Exactly.
Find some other way. And people do get a certain amount of VR legs,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I remember whenever I first started with VR, I couldn't play Pavlov because it would
right.
it would make me sick. But now I don't, and I haven't really even played that many games, but just from using it so much on my own projects, like I can play anything now and it doesn't affect me.
I can, but there are still things I need to look out for, like Air Wings 2. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but you played it. I played it for like 20 minutes. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to be sick again. I'd forgotten. It'd been so long since I got motion sick from the headset.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this isn't good because it stayed with me for hours,
Yeah. That's why I implemented rolling in my
Ooh,
game, but it's only if you don't have to use it. It's not something that you have to use. You can use it if you want to use it.
right, right,
The rest of the time, if you don't use it, it just it keeps you level all the time at auto
right.
level. So
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about
yeah.
because that's
Yep,
that's the only thing that really makes you sick.
yep,
If you roll, all the rest of the movement
yeah,
will be fine. Even
yeah.
me sometimes if I roll at the wrong spot, it'll get me a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah. Well, that's like flying squirrel chase. One of the important things is I keep the player upright at all times. And I experimented with different things that would let you do, flip over and whatever. I was like, nope, you can bounce around. And, in that game, you go all over the place quickly. You ought to see these kids. And they don't have a problem with it because the head is always straight up and
Yeah.
down,
I thought
you know.
I seen a thing on TV and it made me think of a funny mechanic that might be fun to try. I might try it out
What?
eventually.
What?
You ever see the like at the carnival they got the people that's walking like on the really tall like stilts like sticks.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Well, what if you had like walking sticks for your hands and that was how you moved, right? You had to
Dude, I
use
already
the
have
walking
it.
stick.
I already
Oh,
have it. It's
really?
phenomenal. I already have it. In Hexabody, um, I did a scene where I made grabbables. I made really long legs with feet, and I have handles at the top of them so you can grab each one. And it's in one of my monkey motion games, so you don't have feet anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
You can pick those up and you can walk.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's phenomenal. Yeah. Um, Jesus, I got to release some of these things.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I think I almost think the platformer prototype was supposed to be like it. Well, I got stuck with the levels because they all were kind of the same. But I'm almost thinking that all these little experiments I have, maybe that experiment makes a level, like
Yeah, yeah.
the walking legs. There's here. All right,
Yeah,
you got
it's basically like you should basically take them all, put them all together, and make like a Roblox type world. Where like how like in Roblox they got the I don't know what they're called, but there's the different worlds where they like there's a bunch of different games. Like maybe
right.
one you gotta like race to the top of this mountain, and maybe another one you gotta like try to jump over. Yeah, do something like
hmm
that with all the mechanics you got.
Right, right. I actually have never played Roblox, but yes, yes, sort of mini games that, you know, and but like the legs, I had somebody play it and they were like, "Wow, I've never seen that before. That's awesome."
Yeah,
The other thing with the legs is because you're holding them, you can actually reach high and pull yourself up. I put feet on them so they kind of catch
yeah.
on
Well,
a wall, so you can
yeah. So
kind of
I was thinking about doing them as like toilet plungers, right? So then you can like use them
yeah.
to walk up the wall, walk on the ceilings, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, you have to hit it on the wall with a certain amount of force so the plunger
So it
sticks.
sticks. Yeah.
And maybe the seal only stays so long.
So
Like if you
long.
do
Yeah.
it gently, right, and you can hear it squeaking when it starts to pull
Yeah.
away, you can
And then that little pop. I might make that this
yeah.
week. I might have to do that.
Oh, no, no, don't work on your game, dude.
Yeah, I know.
No,
It's so easy
too
to
many
get off
prototypes.
topic.
Too many
It's
prototypes.
so easy.
Do it later. Do it later. All right, Squirmy. What do you think?
I
Another
think
one
we're
in the
good.
books.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
so.
Well, as always, good talking to you. And thanks for joining us. You can get in touch with us at
It's vrdevtalk@gmail.com. Or if you're listening on Spotify, there should be a little questionnaire on at the bottom, and you can ask any questions you like. If you have any questions or you want to know anything, go ahead
or
and
topics from
ask.
or
Yeah,
topics for future shows, or if you have any guests to suggest, if you know any developers who'd like to be on the show, drop us a line. We'll see what we can do. All right. Thanks, folks.
bye.